If you are an AI architect, project manager, or working on building specific business strategies, then you know how crucial it is to select the right AI model for your task. Knowing which AI model to use is a vital skill, especially as AI continues to grow in importance. With so many predefined models like GPT, BERT, and others, how do you know which one to pick? What parameters should guide your choice? So in this video, we will walk you through how to select the right model for any task or industry. Our instructor will cover the key factors to consider when making this decision. And by the end of this video, you'll be ready to choose the best AI model for your projects. Also, this video is part of our AI for Business Leaders series. So if you haven't checked out our previous video in the series, make sure that you click the I button right over here and catch up with day 1 and day 2. They are packed with valuable insights, and today's video will be built on that. So let's jump right in and get started.
Retail bank wants to classify loan applications by risk, generate personalized approval or denial letters, and summarize loan officer notes. So there are 3 different tasks. What do you want to use for each of these 3 tasks? So first 3 options, same model. Fourth option.
I can give you some hint. Don't pick Mixtral of the all 3 tasks because we have not learned Mixtral. That's how I would do. My logic go. Okay.
So name is Mixtral. It's a mix of so many things.
Yeah.
So it can literally do everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. But for A.
Yeah, so Mixtral can be used, but if I am supposed to pick one answer, then it should be the BERT. So Mixtral can do. That's the reason it has the name as Mixtral to some extent. T5 is an encoder decoder model that cannot do classification tasks like classify loan application cannot be done by T5. Let's rule out step by step. GPT is for generative tasks. Again, if you want to fine tune a GPT model for loan classification, that's overdue. Generate personalized approval letter. That's what GPT is, more appropriate for. Summarization. That is where your T5 models are better. Okay, and so the option goes with C. BERT A for A. That is for loan application classification. You can fine tune a BERT model. Rather, you will have to. Because BERT are encoder models, they have a very thorough understanding of the grammar, the context, the meaning of each and every word, including sentiment. So they can understand those applications, the content present in that, and do a very good classification. So Mixtral models, these are like a mixture of experts. Mixtral model is a mixture of expert model, and we have clearly 3 different tasks. So one is a classification task suitable for an encoder model. B is a suitable for decoder model, and C is suitable for encoder decoder model. So if you want a mix, definitely Mixtral can also pick up. Okay, let's see. So we have names like Boti Mac, Boatface, Bell, Pingu Mars, Dr. Centipede, one of my favorite names, Dr. Centipede, Ashley Snuggles Room. Okay, nice. So few more players have joined, it seems, after the first question. So primary business advantage of encoder only models like BERT over decoder models, which are like GPT models. What is the main business advantage? Don't go with the colors that you see. Red doesn't mean it's wrong and green doesn't mean it is right. They are just to populate the bars at the end. Okay. So don't think that I'm indirectly hinting the right and the wrong answers. Okay. Yes. So good that everyone is, the majority is getting the answers correct. Okay. So the main business advantage is it is much, much faster and also much lower cost for classification tasks. So GPT models are more suitable for generative tasks like chatbot kind of application. Okay, but if you want a clear classification like sentiment analysis, document classification, loan classification, fraud classification, you can fine tune a BERT model, and they are actually meant for these kind of things. Okay, so better accuracy. Yeah.
Can I stop you for a minute because it's a good question? PJ is saying, PJ, is it like, if you don't mind, can you put your full name because it'll be good for me to understand? Change your name. You can go to right click on your name and understand and change it so that it's good to know. who, because then I can understand, because okay, so can't I use just GPT or Llama or Claude for not notes summarization? I'm using in my current project for summarization.
Yeah, so these are all generative models. That's what we have clearly mentioned. Okay, so these are all generative models, and most of these models which you have got post, let's say 2024, these are all already mixture of experts model without you even realizing. So GPT 5x series, they're all MOE models. Okay, and all your Llama models 3.3 beyond that. Okay, that's also MOE model, Claude models, which is Sonnet, Opus, or Haiku 4x. Now we have 4, 4.5, up to 3.7 Claude models. Okay, it was purely a generative model, but the moment the new generation came in, okay, that is your Claude, Sonnet, or Haiku or Opus 4, they are already MOE models, and that's the reason you can literally use any of these models for any of these tasks. Okay, but again, MOE models are the future. That's what I would say, and that's what I had repeated in the last session as well. Because the main advantage of the MOE models is not the entire model is active at any inference time. So based on the task, fewer, let's say, so mixture of expert is like it's a mix of 15 to 20 different models, and there is a router model, there is an orchestrator model, okay, which decides which model will be used for which kind of a task. So you have a fine-tuned model for each of these several tasks which mostly users are asking for, like summarization, classification, generations, okay, question answering, okay, email writing, image creation. So these are different tasks which they have figured out in the last 2.5 years that users are usually requesting. So they have created a fine-tuned model for each of these tasks, and now they have created a MOE model. Okay. Now, if your business use cases are very well defined, that this is what will be done here, okay, then it's still advisable to go with the model which it is actually meant for. Now, you can literally use all of these models for all of these purposes. That is good, you know, to go, but may not be a good strategy as a Gen AI architect. Okay, because these are interview kind of questions. They really want to test your understanding. Okay, those people who don't understand the real capabilities of the models, and more importantly the limitations of the models, they will literally use every single model for every kind of task. That was the very first slide. Okay, now these later models, they are reasoning models, thinking models. They will reason, think, and literally will be able to do everything that you want. But then it's overkill, and the latency is also very high. If you want an instant classification, I would always go for a BERT model, and that's what BERT is again open source, so cost is also very small. Okay, you just need to deploy a small BERT model. You can use BERT small, BERT medium, BERT large. BERT already comes in 3 different variants depending on what kind of task or how complex your classification task is. So as a Gen AI architect, I need to have a clear understanding what to use where. Now, based on the company's requirements, other things, other projects to make it compatible, and also let's say every single company have whitelisted a few models for their own tasks. Okay, so based on all those limitations, if they say that okay, Prashant, let's use this for this, I'll say okay, fine, but at least I am clear conceptually what model is more appropriate for what, and this kind of clarity is what is tested usually in the interviews. Okay, so that was the thought process, that you should have that clarity. Whether you want to use that or not, it's a call of the business. But as an AI strategist, as a Gen AI architect, your clarity is more important. Okay, so that at least you can make a strong case for yourself and for the business. Okay, and then let the decision makers decide, because every time my decision is not always accepted because there are other limitations and things.
Super, Prashant. Well done. On this case, Pandirajan, I want to know, like later we'll see what you're doing, and so that others have questions, they can ask good as well. So those are the kind of things. If someone is not doing, they're still not implementing, but they want to learn and implement or cover an interview, they can take an example. We're doing something like this or that. Okay. So we'd love to hear whenever you're ready. I want you to come and present and say, this is what we are doing. Hide all the personal or like identifiable details, but as generic as possible. Okay, brilliant. Thanks. What does self-attestation in transformers enabled that previous models couldn't do effectively? Is it translate between any language pairs, generate image from text, process all words in parallel, um, and capture long-range dependencies, or run on mobile devices effectively?
Very nice, very nice. I'm so super happy that almost everyone have got this very correct. So there was a very clear, discussion that RNN and LSTM models, which were the traditional sequence learning models, they used to process the text one by one in a sequence. And the biggest difference between these traditional RNN LSTL models versus transformer model is the entire text is processed in parallel by a transformer model, and that is the reason the training is very very fast. Second point about this self attention is each word is seen with respect to all the nearby words. That is the attention. So I had given one example. Okay, the cat sat on the mat, it was fluffy. Now what would that it mean? Is it referring to a cat? Is it referring to the mat, or whatever, let's say? So the meaning of word could be a bit disambiguated, okay, based on its dependencies and relationships. Okay, so we want the model to pay attention to these kind of details, pay attention to the relationship of each word with respect to the other words, and that helps the models to find the right context, the right meaning in that particular sentence and statement. Okay, perfect. So okay, as of now, we have no idea.
Your foot
We are.
circles. Simba, I love this. Boti. Is it
Then these
real?
are actual names which were there by default. I think no one has
Okay, yeah, they
their
picked up
names.
the. Okay. Okay. So next is your legal team needs to analyze 10,000 contracts, average 50 pages. What's the best strategy? I think they've covered, you should be knowing. Use Claude or chunk contract and use BERT, use Delhi or use GPT-4.
You can have more than one answers in this. Okay, so Claude, no one thought about that. So Claude has got a much longer context window. You could have used Claude actually. And chunking is always the best strategy. So if I'm supposed to select a single answer, answer will be B, which most of you have already selected. One is the worst answer. Sorry, C is the worst answer, I would say, because DALI is a clear model to generate images, and trying to visualize contract structures, that still is not possible. It cannot create word clouds if that is what you are expecting. Okay, and even if it might be, but still it will not be that effective. There are already standard libraries. There is a library called as word cloud. If you want to create a word cloud, instead of going to Delhi, I would use that library, Python library, word cloud. In just 2 lines of code, it generates beautiful, meaningful word clouds. Okay, the last option is GPT-4 Turbo with 128,000 context window may not be sufficient. So if you are given two choices, whether to go with 128K context window or 200K context window, assuming that the prices are more or less same, I will always go for a higher context window to be on safer side. So that was the trick part here, because again, there are 50,000 pages, sorry, 50 pages may not fit in 128K, but might fit in 200K. If it doesn't also fit in the 200K context window, then the answer option B is always there with you. So you will break into chunks and then use fine-tuned BERT model for the classifications. Okay. Okay. So more or less we have
Still same.
Yeah, more or less same.
So I hope you're finding this helpful so far. Now, before we dive into more, I just want to quickly mention a couple of things. First of all, we have prepared a document that includes more use cases similar to the ones discussed in this video. Be sure to check it out. You can download the document for free via the link provided in the description or pinned comment. And second, if you're serious about jumping into AI or leveling up your skills, we're also offering a free masterclass where we share a proven 3-step framework that's helped so many of our learners land amazing jobs in AI, machine learning, data science, and generative AI. And if that sounds interesting, check out the link in the description or in the pinned comment.
Yes, there is a point for speed as well, but don't get it wrong if you're not comfortable. Okay.
Yeah, your CFO wants to know which AI investment will deliver ROI fastest. Which use case shows results in 30 to 60 days?
So
So now
fine
these are
tuning
strategy kind of questions.
fine-tuning the BERT on 5 years of proprietary contract data, deploying custom trained GANs for synthetic data generation, using GPT-4 APIs to customer email response generation with human review, or building a custom mixture of expert model from scratch. Building from scratch. This is we are looking for delivering ROI fastest with use cases which shows result in 30 to 60 days.
Okay. Again, the reason is anything which deals with from scratch or fine tuning was the trap here.
Correct.
Okay.
So
You
that's what I was saying.
cannot
That's why I have
do
focused.
fine tuning, or you cannot have fine tuned models ready in the sense production ready in 30 or 45 days. Okay. You need lot of data processing. Okay. And fine tuning is not a simple skill. Okay. You need AI researchers, not AI developers. Okay. Not AI strategists, not AI architects. No, the clear job description is AI researchers. Okay, very few companies have this kind of job roles. Okay, they are the ones who know the architecture in and out. So they are the ones who know how to exactly manipulate this particular existing model to a given use case. And then there are several fine tuning techniques. You will have to experiment which fine tuning technique is better for that kind of scenario. That experimentation can itself take 2 months. Okay, assuming that you have GPUs. So what if you don't have the GPU available? You will put a request to AWS which will get approved in a month. In a month. For a month. So again, that may not be so because AWS will provision it at least for a month. And that itself is $100,000 at least to start with. $100,000. So in principle that looks good, but fine tuning is the worst option and the last case scenario, I would say. Same goes with GAN models. GAN models are for image generation. So until unless and this statement itself is contradictory. You cannot use a GAN for synthetic data generation. Here, assuming that data is textual data or numeric data, we have not specified. So GAN can only generate images. Okay, and I don't know if that is a specific use case, but training a GAN model itself is very tricky because GAN itself has two types of architectures within it. If you remember, the generator and the discriminator, and they are competing against each other to become better and better. Sometimes that also leads to mode collapse, means the entire GAN model training can fail. That's a very standard problem. You just go to ChatGPT and ask what are the problems of training a GAN model, and this is the very first line you will get. Okay, so training a GAN model is even much more tricky than using fine tuning. It's very tricky actually, and more often GAN model training actually fails because sometimes the discriminator completely overpowers, sometimes the generator completely overpowers. If the generator completely overpowers, then let's say you are only generating, your model will not be able to understand. Okay, and if it is the discriminator which is uh, overpowering, then the model will not be able to generate decent images altogether. So that's the last option, I would say. Yes, so GPT model is you are using a pre-built API already. So your entire headache of building a model, deploying the model is gone. All you have to do is just collect the data, make an API call. That's a few seconds job. Even if you are doing for millions of them, it's still a 1 day job, or batch processing, maybe a 5 day job, and then start with human review. Human review is very important for any use case. Okay, because you just don't want to deploy an entire application based on any third party models opinion. Ultimately, GPT-4 model is a third party model that has never been touched by you, right? So unless and until there is a human review of the output, and another reason for the human review is you will have to fine tune your prompts. GPT model can give you very good results and very bad results. Who's the culprit? Not GPT-4. The culprit is the prompt. So the human review is especially checking what kind of prompt engineering technique is giving the best results. right? So you have to do a A/B testing kind of thing several times, but that is all the human review part, and that is where spending time makes much more sense. Getting output from the model is just few milliseconds because that's a API call ultimately, right? Assuming that here the assumption is you are working with a, let's say, smaller amount of data maybe, and you are comfortable sharing your data with GPT-4. Otherwise, do a custom deployment of GPT-4 in Bedrock and use that GPT-4. That is also fine. Okay. So advantage of that technique is you are not sharing any data with OpenAI. Okay, and that custom deployment is again a couple of hours job. That is just couple of hours job. Okay, custom deployment doesn't mean that you have to create a infrastructure. It's just few clicks. AWS Bedrock already gives that facility. So ROI is fastest in the third option. And the fourth option, which most of you have got it wrong, is building a model. Again, this is even worse than fine tuning, I would say. Okay, so don't ever think to build a model from scratch. It takes 7 to 8 months for engineers from OpenAI and Gemini to come with a slightly incremental version. Forget about the newer version. So from GPT 5 to 5.1, it takes 8 months. 5 to 5.1, it takes 8 months. Okay, 6 months for data preparation, 2 months for training, and then 2 to 3 months for model alignment and fine tuning. So it's a big cycle. Okay, so we can't build a model from scratch for a normal company. It's let's be real and practical. Okay, so 99% of the companies will not have the leverage to build a model these days. It doesn't make sense altogether, right? So
Brilliant. And guys, even if you got it, there's no problem, because this is where the whole point is about. You never fail. You learn a lot of things. So again, don't feel, oh, I didn't get it. That's true. Not an issue. Go back, maybe watch one more time, and or these are the things that you'll be able to answer strategically as well. Okay. Thank you.
Sean is raising a very good question. GPT outputs are not deterministic. They can be, depends on the prompts. Okay. So there are techniques called as structured outputs where you can force the model to give deterministic outputs these days. Okay.
So you're processing 1 million support ticket monthly, which optimizations save the most money. Most money.
Okay, very nice. So use a BERT model to classify the tickets, GPT-4 only for complex cases. Very good. Actually, so it's like 80-20 case. Okay. So use the BERT model. If it is support ticket classification, could be billing, could be general, could be related to technical. So 3-4 typical classifications are there for most of the support tickets for most of the companies. Okay, is it billing related? Is it technical? Okay, related to models, their services, okay, configurations, and so on. That is technical. Third is general queries. What are your working hours? Are you open on so and so day? Okay, maybe related to shipping. What is the refund policy? These are all general queries. Okay, and something more. So 3 to 4 categories are always there in any companies. Again, depends on what domain it is. If it is healthcare or insurance related, there might be 1 or 2 more. But yeah, train a model and that will do instant classification, and then the final response generation can be done by a GPT-4 model. That can be done. Okay. So we were talking about which optimization saves most money. So if you are using BERT models, BERT is open source. BERT is open source. So if you are just doing that, that's the easiest and the best. So use Mixtel for all tasks. Again, if you're using $0.02 per ticket, it will explode in cost. Okay, so not
1 million. If you do 1 million to 0.02 is still a lot of money. Yeah.
correct. So if you're using GPT-4 model only for complex cases, again, assumption being that GPT-4 model will have, let's say, a similar cost, but you are using for smaller volume. Okay, only for the complex cases. In that case, you can use a Mixtel model. But then the bigger question is, how do you know whether it is complex or not? Any idea? How do you know whether it is complex or not? That itself can be done by another, a small model, SLM, what we call as small language model. You can take a 500 million parameter model or even a 270 million parameter model like a 5354. Okay, and that can instantly classify whether this can be easy task or a tricky task. So use an open source SLM to do this classification. That will be 10 millisecond job, and then feed it to BERT, which will do the final classification because it has been fine tuned, and then the remaining complex cases can be given as a API call. Okay, switch to GPT 3.5 for all tasks. So again, as long as you are using any GPT model or Mixtral model, Claude model for all the support tickets, it will never be cost worthy. I would say that way, right? And of course, human review should be done, I would say, for cross checking your system whether it is working as expected. So let's say even if it is 1 million support tickets monthly, you don't have to uh, do a human review for all the 1 million support tickets, but at least 1,000 support tickets at random spread across days should be good enough. Okay, now I think one of the okay, question number 7. Let's take it fast. Which statement about encoder decoder models is false? SLM is small language model. Like LLM, large language model, SLM is a small language model. Large language models typically have more than 1 billion parameters. SLM can have less than that. Now, again, that definition is not very strict, but yeah, but widely accepted, I would say. So, so they are more efficient than GPT for structured transformations. That is correct or wrong? They excel at summarization tasks and they separate understanding encoder from generation decoder. They can generate novel creative content better than GPT. Okay. So T5 and BART, basically these are encoder decoder kind of models, and we have the correct answer only by 4. Okay, let's take one by one. They separate understanding encoder from generation. That is true. So we are talking about which statement is false, not true. Okay, so this was a bit tricky. So the first statement is actually true because we have an encoder and a decoder architecture. Encoder will understand what is given as the input. Decoder will actually generate whatever is the requested output. So statement A is correct. Okay. Coming to the third one, they excel at summarization. Yes, this we have been repeating several times, so there is no point in explaining this again. So this is the case. They're more efficient than GPT model for structure transformation. That's absolutely correct. So suppose you have a CSV, you want to convert that into JSON, you can use a T5 model, right? So that also was there in my slide notes which I had given. This exact statement was there, and with the example CSV to JSON transformation. Okay.
No, I
So
think Prashant, I suspect it's because they did not read the question correctly. They were thinking statement is true, and that's a tricky. That's what I'm saying when we do. So that sounds like to me a more tricky question. Those who missed it. So.
right. So they are not for generating novel content. I mean that would be for a decoder model only. Okay, so that was the answer. Perfect. Let's go ahead and
Again, for
see.
those who are still struggling or not sure or got wrong, not to worry. Time to go back because that will solidify your understanding of these models, etc. as well. Okay. Yeah. To minimize GPT-4 hallucination in financial report generation, the best approach is option 1, use longer prompts with more examples. Option 2, fine-tune GPT on a specific date. Implement. Option 3, implement RAG. We'll cover, if you're not, those are new, what is RAG. And set temperature to 0. We'll talk about as well in model what is temperature, top P, top K. Those things as well will be coming as well if those are new here. 23 answer.
Okay, so grounding itself is the best option. Okay, so you don't ask the model to generate an answer from its knowledge base. Even if you are setting the temperature to 0, it's still using its own learned knowledge, which may not be right all the time. It depends on how and what data it has been trained on. So it's always best to do a grounding. And how do you do that grounding? Provide the relevant context from the company policy documents, technical documents, user manual, whatever that is. Provide the right context, and it uses that context to generate the answer. So this is the
Prashant, just
best.
for someone who's new coming, because there are a couple of guys, just explain in one sentence what does grounding mean for those, or RAG, just very quickly on RAG or grounding. I
RAG,
think we
there are
covered
three
RAG. I
terms.
think we covered. Yeah. Over
Yeah,
to you.
so RAG, there are 3 words: retrieval, augmented, generation. So retrieval means you retrieve the right context. So user has asked for something. Let's say, do you support on-prem models? That is the user question. Do you support the deployment of on-prem models? Okay. Now, whether the company supports the deployment of on-prem models or not, where is that information going to be? Okay, it has to look into its technical documentation, user manuals, policies, and so on, and it finds the right context from there. Okay, there is a paragraph which mentions about on-prem model deployment. Okay, in that case, the first statement is the users can bring their own on-prem model. We are supporting so and so. This is the way that you can use so and so models. These are the steps. So that paragraph is pulled. That is the retrieval part. And then that paragraph is given to a GPT-4 model. You can use any response generation model that's saying that, hey, this is what the user has asked. This is the context. Used this context strictly to answer the user query. If the context is insufficient or does not have the answer to the user query, simply say, I don't know. This itself completely eliminates hallucination. So at the end, model will generate answers which are grounded based on that context. I can always go back and see which context was used to generate this answer, because the context along with the user query is also stored these days. Everything is logged. Okay, what was the question? What was the retrieved context? What was the generated answer? And when we do the periodic human review, okay, of this entire system, this will also help. The context is also going to really help. Okay, am I retrieving the right context, or is the retrieval itself failing? Okay, or not sufficient? Based on that, I can change my retrieval strategies. Okay, so that is all the inner details of the RAG. So you retrieve the context, give it to the LLM, that is called as augmentation. Okay, and then the LLM generates the final answer using the context. That is the retrieval augmented generation part with
Again,
verified
going
data sources. Why verified? Because it's not using data from the entire internet. It's only using data which is internal to the company policies and documents.
question next. Which scenario justifies using multiple different model architecture instead of one unified model? When you lack technical expertise, you lack diverse task, classification, generation, summarization with high volume, your budget is very limited, or you have 5 employees in one use case. Which scenario justified multiple different models? Architecture.
Right. So if you have diverse tasks, then you should experiment with different model architectures. Okay. So I think that's quite self-explanatory. Everyone would have got that correct. Okay. The fastest is okay. Metal. Metal is the fastest, and we have a clear lead by Simba and Barefoot. Um, okay. So last question for the day. This also I've answered. This shouldn't take 25 seconds.
Becoming the default for cost-efficient multitask enterprise AI. Hint, day 2, last part. Ouch.
Okay. We still have.
Just can you answer this question, because then there's a little bit. I was hoping there's a one answer.
Everyone would go with the MOE these days, because see, that's what some time back I mentioned, that post December, last almost in the last 1 year, most of the models which have come, the newer generations. Okay, so GPT-4 to GPT-5. GPT-5 is entirely MOE. Your Claude 3.7 to 4, that 4x, whether it is 4 or 4.5 these days, okay, that's entirely MOE. Gemini 1.5, the moment it became Gemini 2, 2 Flash, whatever. So Gemini 2 and 3 both are MOE these days. So rarely you will find encoder or decoder models these days which are being used by the enterprises. So most of the, you know, the best performing models, they are literally able to do everything. Okay, so in the same prompt you can ask it to write an email, same prompt you can ask it to summarize, same prompt you can ask it to generate some other text, maybe a jingle for your brand, anything. And that's why these are mixture of experts, because they have several smaller models. So I had given a clear example of a DeepSeek model, which I would say democratized the MOE first time. Everyone were already experimenting, but they were not revealing the MOE architecture. So, for example, this OpenAI company that was already using this GPT-4 model 1.5 years ago already. GPT-4 is not new, okay? But they were not revealing their architecture. That's the biggest problem.
So that's all for today's video. You now have a clear understanding of how to use generative AI, whether it's for understanding data, creating new content, or transforming existing information. And if you want to take your AI skills to the next level and secure a high-paying job, don't forget to sign up for our free AIML and Agentic AI Masterclass. It's a perfect resource to help you build the experience you need. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest content. And if you got any questions, drop them in the comments below, and don't miss our next video. There's more to come.